New GDP numbers show the U.S. economy shrinking for the second consecutive quarter. This follows a series of interest rate hikes meant to cool down the economy. The president and the Federal Reserve Chair insist that America is not in a recession. Debra Alfarone has more from the White House.
President Biden met with a group of corporate executives as signals flashed of an economic downturn.
There's going to be a lot of chatter today on Wall Street and among pundits about whether we are in a recession.
The Commerce Department reported the gross domestic product shrank from April through June at an annual rate of 0.9%. The government's broadest measure of the economy has now declined for 2 straight quarters, traditionally a sign of recession. But President Biden says the slowdown is necessary to tackle rising prices.
There's no doubt we expect growth to be slower than last year and the rapid clip we had. But that's consistent with the transition to a stable, steady growth and lower inflation.
With the midterm elections approaching, the Biden administration is pushing back on the idea that the U.S. economy is sliding into a recession, pointing to areas of strength in the economy.
Job creation is continuing. Household finances remain strong. Consumers are spending and businesses are growing.
Even so, Americans are struggling with both higher borrowing rates and stubborn inflation.
I suspect prices are going to keep coming down, but they're going to remain uncomfortably high for a longer period of time than any of us would like.
The economy's last recession lasted only 2 months in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. Debra Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
For more on the GDP numbers and the American economy, Gene Sperling joins us now. He is a senior advisor to President Biden. Let's first listen a little bit more to what President Biden said today.
It's important to start with what we know before this morning's report. Our job market remains historically strong. Our economy created more than 9 million jobs since I came to office, in no small part because of the people on this stage. Our economy created more than 1 million jobs in the second quarter, the same period as today's GDP report covers.
Gene, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. You just heard President Biden. Despite what he said, many Americans, as you know, still feel economic pain. In your view, is the United States in a recession right now?
Oh, no, there's no question the United States is not in a recession right now. But that also doesn't mean that people aren't legitimately feeling pain when they're going through the grocery line or at the gas pump. I mean, we're glad gas prices are down 75 cents, in part due to the president's action on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But there's no question that even though we've had record job growth, even though we've had this very low 3.6% unemployment, the higher prices, the impact global inflation is having on Americans here at home, hurts for a lot of people. All we're really trying to do, all the president's trying to do, is give a balanced assessment of the economy. This is an economy where people are struggling with higher prices, but it's also an economy where we've had, even these last 6 months, job growth that is about the strongest job growth in 6 months in the history of our country. That is not consistent with a recession, but it doesn't mean that people are not feeling the mix, which is glad that there's a strong job market and low unemployment, but still struggling with the higher prices that the president is really doing everything he can to try to bring down. Even if the main job is the Federal Reserve, even the legislation we're talking about today is about lowering drug prices, lowering health care premiums, lowering energy costs. So we want to do everything we can to help Americans have lower costs during this time of higher prices.
Gene, you mentioned the Fed, and it raised interest rates this week again to fight rising inflation. As you're sitting there with President Biden evaluating all this from the White House, do you believe the Fed should be doing even more?
You know, one of the pillars of our economic strategy is to respect the independence of the Federal Reserve. And so what we're doing is giving them the room to do that. You know, I'd say 5 of the presidents in the past, 50 years have lambasted the Federal Reserve when they've sought to raise interest rates to tame inflation. This president believes in the independence of the Fed, so we're not going to comment or criticize on what they do. What we're going to do is look at what we can do, like passing this legislation that reduces prescription drug costs, like releasing the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help bring down gas prices, like our infrastructure plan that's allowing up to maybe 50 million families in total to have very low cost, if not free, internet coverage. Those are all things that can help lower prices for families while we make this transition from what was a red-hot economy to what we hope is a more stable growth with lower prices, but still preserves a lot of the very strong job gains we've had.
Gina, is the White House confident the Senate Democrats have enough votes on this package?
Well, we all learn to not do vote predictions, just like economic projections can be difficult. What we're making clear today is that this bill is something that the president strongly supports. And what's been interesting, what a unifier this bill's been, we've had some disagreements with some friends of the administration, like Senator Manchin, like my friend Larry Summers, and yet everyone is agreeing on this, from Elizabeth Warren to Joe Manchin, that this would lower inflation, lower the deficit, and it would lower costs for Americans, from energy costs to prescription drugs. So I think there is a lot of momentum for this legislation right now.
But there's so many things going on, Gene, beyond Washington. President Biden spoke earlier today with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and there are certainly fears out there globally about China potentially invading Taiwan. What would that mean if it happened for the U.S. economy?
Well, one thing smart economic advisors at the White House do is not try to pretend they're the national security advisor. So I'm going to let my colleague Jake Sullivan deal with that. What I would say is that when you look at, it is an interconnected world, and no question, part of the challenges with Omicron and Delta has been the fact that China has done lockdowns. There's been other countries that have affected our semiconductors and affected the production of autos and therefore the price of autos. So, we're focused right now on the things we can do. And one of the great things happened today was the CHIPS bill, the semiconductors bill passed. And one of the great things that will do is increase more jobs in manufacturing and production and innovation in the United States to increase the supply of semiconductors. And I do think that will make us less vulnerable to other countries, including China, going forward, and will be a positive force in the long run for both jobs and higher supply and lower inflation.
Gene, just a quick final follow-up to that. Knowing you're not the national security advisor, is the administration, though, preparing economically for a potential sudden turn of events with China?
Again, I'm gonna stay away from commenting on anything that's related to the president's call today with China. As administration, you're always being prepared for everything, but I'm not going to, go any further than that.
Gene Sperling, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.